Hey there everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Boobo-Rama, and in today's video, we are going to be breaking into every single fighter plane in Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. We got the B11 Strike Force, the Pyro, the Rogue, the Dakota, the Starling, Molotov, the Hydra, and the Laser. All of these vehicles are ranging in price tag, and each one of them has their own unique abilities. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all of them in their dog fighting capabilities, because, I mean, let's be real. If you're in a plane, the biggest threat you're going to have, especially a lot of the newer planes that have flares, is people chasing you in other planes, because even an Oppressor Mark II is really going to struggle to keep up with you in, let's say, a B11 Strike Force, let alone land any of its missiles when you have the ability to launch flares. So let's get straight into it, starting off with the vehicle in the front being the B11. Let's talk about its strengths. So first of all, it carries an explosive minigun. That is great. The fact that you can just shoot this minigun at cars on the ground is fantastic. And as well, I will point out that the B11 has absolutely amazing handling. There's a lot of planes, especially some of the dogfighting planes like the Rogue, that are very finicky on the handling, but as you can see, it very, very gently just pulls up and down, but still very aggressively at the same time. It doesn't go too aggressive to the side, but yet if you turn the plane to the side, you can turn incredibly fast. Now, the B11 Strike Force is meant to do what the Warthog was meant to do in real life, and that is, first of all, drop bombs. This is a great vehicle for just nuking ground troops because of how stable it is at flying. It's also one of the best planes for taking a beating. I think it can survive up to 4 missiles, which is quite impressive. It does also have the barrage capability, the only fighter plane in the game that carries barrage missiles, which is pretty dang strong. I mean, hey, if you're going to shoot at anybody on the ground with the barrage missiles, it's a lot better than bombs, because you can just, you know, let's pretend this jet over here is somebody in their insurgent, and there you go. They've lost a lot of their survivability in that vehicle, or if you're trying to just shoot at somebody, it's a great capability. I would say the best thing, though, especially for dogfighting, is that explosive minigun. You don't get that in a lot of planes, and the fact that the B11 Strike Force does get the explosive machine gun is a definite win. But the price tag is quite expensive. It's $3.8 million. And the fact that this plane doesn't carry 2 seats, and it's also the slowest flying plane by far in the list today, is one thing you gotta keep in mind. It only goes 163 miles an hour. Still very fast, but let's say, for example, we compare it to the Pyro, which is the fastest flying vehicle in the game. In fact, the fastest thing in the game. The Pyro has the ability to go 222.75 miles per hour. That is a lot faster than the B11 Strike Force. However, there's a big downside with the Pyro, and that is no explosive machine gun. It just has your normal run-of-the-mill machine gun. Now, it does have missiles, no barrage or anything like that, but just normal missiles. The problem is, sure, this plane is great. It's super maneuverable, as you can see. It turns just as fast as the Strike Force, and it flies way faster. But none of this is going to help you in a dogfight, because what you're going to want to do is blow up your opponent. And let's say they're in a Rogue, for example, which also gets flares, the same flares you do, but the Rogue has an explosive machine gun. Guess what? If that Rogue ever gets your back, you're screwed. And if you get the Rogue's back, you're just going to be hitting it with this little, like, 50 cal. Sure, it's a 50 cal. It does a lot of damage, but it doesn't deal nearly as much damage as you could be doing with an explosive machine gun. So I think the Pyro is a very good plane. First of all, it carries 2 seats, which is fantastic. And it's a great vehicle for all things considered, for how fast it is, the fact that it does have missiles and flare capabilities. But why would I buy a Pyro for a grand total price tag of $4.4 million when I can just buy a Rogue? First of all, the Rogue is not much slower than the Pyro. As we said, the Pyro goes 222. The Rogue goes at a top speed of 219.5. So it's like maybe 2 miles per hour slower. Really not a huge difference overall. And when you add that in with the fact that the Rogue does carry an explosive machine gun, yeah, I mean, it's just that the Rogue has that explosive machine gun. And, as well, the Rogue does have flares. One thing I also forgot to mention about the Pyro is that it does not carry bomb capabilities, where guess what the Rogue does? Yep. So, the Rogue basically has every advantage over the Pyro. It's got the flares, it's got the machine gun. It can also carry 2 seats. The fact that it's cheaper and that it flies basically the same speed, and I also want to point out, it turns faster. It turns way faster than the Pyro. Look at this strafing capability. Sure, the Rogue is an annoying vehicle to fly. It's not very fun at all. It's very finicky, as you can see. It's not like the B11 where it's a smooth up and down. It's really rough. When you turn this plane to the side, it's rough. You'll get a lot of whiplash. However, with all of the negatives aside of just the flying, it's still one of the best planes, simply down to the fact of it having literally no downside. Sure, overhandling is, I guess, a downside, but I'd rather have too much handling than too little, if you catch my drift. Next up, we have a plane that I thought I'd put right behind the Rogue, and that is the Dakota. Now, I think the Dakota looks cooler than the Rogue. It's based off the P-51 Mustang, an absolutely beautiful plane in real life, a piece of history as well. The problem with this plane is that, sure, unlike the Rogue, which the Rogue only has the ability to fire 1-2 missiles, just like the Buzzer, the Hydra, the laser, where it goes boom, boom, and then you have to wait, 4 seconds to shoot again. The Dakota doesn't do that. You'll see I can just hold the fire button with the Dakota, and it will keep shooting over and over. But first of all, it's a single-seater, which is already a big downside. Second of all, the Dakota does not get bombs, as you can see, and as well, it's much slower flying than the Rogue. The Rogue, as we said, goes about 220. The Dakota goes at a top speed of 201. And at a price tag of 2.6 mil, what is the advantage? Well, I can tell you, it's just the flying capability. That's it. It flies a lot nicer. You're not buying this plane to dogfight. You're buying this plane because you like the look of it, because you think it's a really cool vehicle. That's the only reason I can give you an excuse to buy it, because apart from the historical significance, I just don't see any reason. Now, there is one very cool thing. You'll notice that these missiles have 3 little plungers, or like 3 launch tubes. And if you hold the fire button, the missiles will go 1, 2, 3 out of the one side, 1, 2, 3 out of the other. I think that's a really, really unique thing about the Dakota. Very cool vehicle overall. I can't actually say I hate the plane at all. I think it's a very, very awesome vehicle, and I'm definitely going to be picking this up in my Broke to Millions account if it ever goes on sale. It's just, there's really no reason to buy this plane, and I wouldn't ever suggest to. So that's the real problem, is there's just no real advantage over the Rogue. It makes me sad that that's the case. If it had an explosive machine gun, I'd say it is actually just as good as the Rogue, maybe a little worse because it's not as fast, but speed isn't everything. Next up, we have the Starling. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that know how strong the Starling is. There's a lot of great players that can absolutely abuse the capabilities of the Starling and just smoke enemies that are either in oppressors, because it has a super special JATO rocket boost, which gives you insane maneuverability, as you can see, and it lets you fly very fast, although not as fast as you'd think. Sure, that rocket boost is awesome, but it actually only gives you a top speed of 187, which is quite a bit slower than the Pyro and the Rogue, a propeller plane. It's weird how a literal jet is slower than a propeller plane. If I'm not actually mistaken, this was a real German plane that used like some really corrosive acids in real life. There's a whole story about that. Kind of cool, actually. But either way, with that aside, let's talk about the good things when it comes to the Pyro. First of all, it does have the non-stop missile capabilities, unlike the Hydra and all the other planes. As well, I think it does have bombs. Yes, it does. It's one of the only vehicles that's quite small that carries bombs. So it's a very good bomber. I mean, it's very small. It can slow very, very fast down. The problem is that it just runs out of boost. I mean, sure, there's really good players out there that probably understand how to manage the boost very well, but it's still not going to save you. If I'm in a Rogue and you're a really good player managing your boost as well as you can, the fact that I have flares and the fact that like the Rogue can fly faster and it's got the explosive machine gun, I mean, sure, you can definitely strafe a Rogue in this vehicle. You'll probably do fine, but once you run out of that boost, you're done, especially because all you have is a machine gun that has no explosive capabilities, and once again, missiles that aren't going to ever catch a faster vehicle like the Rogue, let alone the flares on it. It's just, I think the Starling is a very cool vehicle as like a novelty, and it can be a super fun plane to fly, but that's as far as I really see it going because there's no other reason to own one. Next up, we have the Molotov. Now, the Molotov is a really sweet looking plane. This is my favorite looking plane, right up there next to the Dakota. The Molotov is based off of a Russian era Saber. It might even be Soviet Union era. I don't know. Either way, it's a really cool plane. It has unlimited missiles, just like all the other planes. You can constantly shoot them, which is something that's really nice. But unfortunately, you probably guessed it, this has no explosive machine gun, as you can see. Once again, if this had an explosive machine gun, it would be way, way better. But for the price tag of a ridiculous 4.78 or not 4.78, but it's, well, let me think. No, it is 4.78, yeah. It's a ridiculous price tag, $4.78 million for this plane. I was just trying to refresh my memory. And the fact that it also is not the fastest at 207, once again, why would I buy this for 4 times the price tag of a vehicle, or 3 times, I guess, of a vehicle compared to, like, the Rogue? I really like the look of this plane. It's cool. It's got a lot of things going for it, and it's not a bad plane at all. But why would I buy it? It's a very similar argument to the Dakota of it just not being as good as the other dogfighters out there, and that's the very simple reason why I'm not ranking it up there. So, finally, we have the 2 oldies. Now, while the Hydra may be one of the oldest planes in the game, not as old as the Laser, which was a release day 1 vehicle, the Hydra has got a lot of unique abilities. First of all, it's a Harrier, which means I can just, you know, take it off of the ground whenever I want, like a helicopter, and then plop it in the jet mode, and look at how sick that is. I mean, there's no doubting the Hydra is an amazing vehicle. Also, the fact that it carries an explosive machine gun, and not an explosive machine gun, sorry, an explosive minigun is insane. Pretend you're trying to take out an Insurgent pickup custom. Any of these other planes is going to struggle. Even the ones like the B11 Strike Force with the explosive MGs are still going to struggle. One single bop from this gun counts as the same amount of damage as an explosion from a sticky bomb, which means if you hold this for just, you know, a couple seconds on the ground, everything's dead. Literally everything is dead, and there's no stopping it. I mean, look at how quick that explosive barrel over there blew up with the gas tanker. I mean, it's just insane. The Hydra is insane in that fact. It's also very fast. Hydra goes in at a top speed of 210 miles per hour. Couple things to note about it. Very expensive. Comes in at a price tag of $4 million. I actually don't think the price tag's too much of that bad of a deal, judging that you get a hovering vehicle that has the ridiculous explosive MG and also has the flying capabilities and everything. Here's the problem. It doesn't have flares. Sure, you have an amazing explosive machine gun, and if you even get the slightest clip on another plane in that dogfight, you will win every single time. But that is not going to save you if you can't dodge missiles. Every single time a missile is fired at you in the Hydra, you have to evade them. Where it's, let's say you're in the Hydra and you're shooting missiles at your opponent. Well, first of all, because the Hydra's missiles are the boom boom missiles, where you fire them once, twice, and then you have to wait like a 4-second cooldown, that's pretty bad. It's just like the Laser here. I'm holding the fire button with missiles. You'll notice I fire 2, and then I have to wait to fire the next 2. The problem with that is vehicles that carry flares obviously have the capability of just disregarding the missiles you fire at them, and then they can instantly get back on your tail and try to take you out, especially when all you're trying to do is dodge their missiles. So I think the Hydra is a great vehicle, but it's just not as good as the vehicles that now have flares and that can carry explosive machine guns, drop bombs, have missiles that are better. Yeah. But I still do think that explosive machine gun is absolutely insane. The final vehicle we're in is the Laser, and I'm going to be real, the Laser is a worse Hydra. It doesn't fly as fast as the Hydra. It costs almost double the price tag at $6.5 million. It looks cool, flies really nice. I mean, the Laser's a great vehicle. There's nothing wrong with it. But for $6.5 million, everything's wrong with it. Why would you buy a Laser when you can use a Hydra? Why would you buy a Hydra when you can buy a Rogue? And that's as simple as the argument gets. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if we're going to rank the vehicles in order, I would say by far the number 1 is the Rogue. It's just the best vehicle. There's no arguing that. It's the fastest when it comes to basically everything you have combined. Sure, it's not as fast as the Pyro, but the fact that it has an explosive MG and it's the fastest with the MG makes it superior in that category. As well, it carries the missiles, which is great. Means that you can stop opponents from trying to chase you for a little bit. It carries flares, which is fantastic. It's got great strafing capabilities. It can drop bombs. It can shoot 2 people. And it's the cheapest. No downsides for the Rogue. Easy first place. In second place, I'm going to put the Hydra. And very simply, because the Hydra still has that ridiculously broken MG, which you can see right here. So because of that, Hydra goes into an easy second. It's a Harrier. It can take off of any area instantly, which is amazing. If your engine's starting to knock off, it's great. But the problem, as I said, with the Hydra is that it doesn't have those flares, so because of that, it stays in second. Third place, we have the B11 Strike Force, another explosive machine gun vehicle. It's that simple. Any vehicle that carries an explosive machine gun is above the rest, because Why would you use a plane that can't strafe and use the machine gun when you get behind your opponent, and you've got these little wimpy missiles that aren't going to be able to catch the flares and everything else? I think explosive machine guns win every single time. So the Strike Force is the next best. After that, as begrudgingly as it has to be, the laser is actually next because, well, I mean, it still has an explosive machine gun. After the laser, let me think. I would probably put the Pyro because it's the fastest of the bunch with the missiles. After the Pyro, the Molotov. After the Molotov, the Dakota. And then finally, we have the Starling. The reason I have the Starling in last place is very simply because I don't see the reason for it. Sure, it's got a really unique ability, but why use that ability when you have planes that have non-stop power and that fly faster than it with its ability to begin with? Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If I missed something, let me know. But hopefully you enjoyed today's video. This took a lot of time to record, especially because I actually thought I was recording previously on my last attempt for 20 minutes, and then it turns out I had actually ended the recording instead of started it. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.